Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico. As always, we've got a great show for you tonight. Already the middle of March. It's hard to believe we're at March 15th, and it's just, I don't know where this year is going, but very excited to be here tonight. And I got a great panel tonight on the Coach's Corner. We're going to bring them out in just a second here, but let me remind everybody, of course, we are live on the network on blogtalkradio.com. Just go to blogtalkradio.com and up in the search key, type in Golf Talk Live, and that will take you to the main page. And we're live from 6 to 8 p.m. Central or 7 to 9 for those of you on the East Coast every Thursday evening, unless otherwise stated. And so you can listen live on Thursdays, or you can scroll down on that page and hit the on-demand section, and you can listen to the show on its recorded version anytime after the live broadcast ends. So if you can't listen to it live, not to worry. There's lots of great options. Some other great options to tune into the show as well is go to iTunes.com, Stitcher.com, and now TuneIn.com. And under the podcast section, again, you can just type in Golf Talk Live, and you can listen to on any of those social media platforms as well. So lots of great ways to connect with the show. Always love to hear from you. You're welcome to call in anytime on Thursday nights during the live broadcast. We'd love to hear from you if you got any questions or comments about the show, and you can do so by calling area code 646-716-4667, or you can certainly email any questions or comments to me about the show to my email, and it's ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. And also, if you're interested in being a guest on the show, you can also reach me there at that email at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. Maybe you're a golf professional or somebody in the business that you'd like to share your story with my listening audience that literally circles the globe. So lots of great folks tuning into the show each and every week, and continually growing audience as well, I might add. So you can reach out to me there. Also on social media, if you go to facebook.com/Golf Talk Live blog, that's the main page, or also on my own personal page, Ted Odorico, you'll get updates on the show as to who's going to be coming up each and every week. Also on Twitter, Ted and Buck CEO is my Twitter handle, and also on LinkedIn.com under my personal name, Ted Odorico. Again, you can get us there. As I mentioned, I got a great Coach's Corner panel tonight. I got three very excellent professionals, Pete Buchanan, John Decker, and Brian Dobby, who've all, of course, been on the show many, many times, not only as guests, but particularly on the Coach's Corner panel, and always, I know, bring their best. A little bit later on in the show, I'm going to be joined by a digital marketer, author, and blogger, Chris Doster. He's going to be joining me from New York a little bit later on in the broadcast. But let me just tell you a little bit about the guys, and then we're going to get into our discussion. As I mentioned, I got three great guys on tonight. Pete Buchanan, first up, founder and director of instruction and owner of Plain Simple Golf, which houses, of course, the Plain Simple Golf circuit and the Simple Swing repeater training brace. And he's been teaching over the last 30 years to help make your golf game a little bit easier and, of course, simple. Also on the panel, John Decker. He's currently the teaching professional at the New Albany Country Club. Also in 2015, he was named the Southern Ohio Teacher of the Year. And prior to that, he was the head instructor at the Grand Cypress Academy of Golf in Orlando, where he worked under some great top 100 instructors, Fred Griffin and Phil Rogers. He's also author of the book, Golf is My Life, Glorifying God Through the Game, which also includes a Bible study with that book. And he's also a motivational speaker around the U.S. He's been all over the place, motivating those of us that need a little help from time to time. And rounding out the panel, of course, is Brian Dobby. He's a PGA teacher professional at the Montclair Golf Club in New Jersey. And Brian has been teaching as a PGA member since 1994 and a golf professional since 91. Teaching golf, of course, is a passion of his, and enjoys teaching both the mechanical side as well as the physical side. and he's been teaching at Montclair now for several seasons. And, of course, it's home to a very outstanding and great junior program, which continues to grow as well each and every season. So without further ado, guys, welcome to the Coach's Corner panel.
Thanks, Ted.
Ted, how are you? Thanks for having us on.
Thank you, Ted.
All right. Thanks, guys. All right. So as I mentioned to you off air, I wanted to kind of give you the heads up on tonight's topic. We're going to talk on the Coach's Corner panel. I'm going to share my 90-day challenge for all of the golfers out there that are getting ready and fired up for the season. Obviously, me being the only one right now down here in Florida, we get the option, of course, playing all year round, but there's a lot of golfers up in the Northeast where most of you guys are that maybe haven't had that spring thaw yet and haven't been able to get out and hit too many balls yet. So I put together a 90-day challenge. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about it, and I'm very confident with the help that this is going to help many of the average golfers master their short game. And I'm going to talk to you about the 3 steps that I put together and how it's going to work. And then, guys, I'm going to get you to jump in, any comments that you want to add to that, and then I'm going to get you to sort of put together what you might consider a great 90-day challenge for especially our high handicap or club golfers out there. So here's mine. What I want the golfers to do that are tuning into the show tonight is I want them to dedicate a minimum of 1 hour a week. Now, I know some people may not always be able to do more than that, but if you do 1 hour a week and you do these steps that I'm going to repeat or talk about here in just a moment, I guarantee that you're going to be able to improve your short game, which ultimately is going to lower your scores and, of course, your handicaps. So what I want you to do is repeat the weekly steps for 3 months, hence the 90 days, and I want you to use the last week of each of the month to put what you've been practicing to work in your games. The key, again, is to practice each step during the hour. So I don't want you to, go to the range and hit balls, for 20, 30 minutes and then put these steps in. I want you to dedicate the whole hour to these specific steps. And they're very, very simple. Step 1 is the first week. What I want you to do is I want you to go to your putting green there at your local course that you play at, and I want you to pace off 20 feet on the practice green. And you can use it in multiple directions. It doesn't always have to be just depending on how large the green is. I want you to pace off 20 feet, and I want you to hit 20 to 30 20-foot lag putts, keeping the putts to try and land them within. Obviously, you want to aim at the pin, and you want to try and maybe drop a few if you're lucky. But I want you to try and keep them within a 1-foot circle. 2 feet for those of you that maybe aren't quite as good or don't play a lot of golf, but I want you to try and focus on keeping them in a 1-foot circle around the hole. Then I want you to, as well, in that hour, I want you to pace off 20 feet from the pin, obviously not on the green, but from the pin, leaving maybe a few feet off the green, and I want you to hit 20 to 30 20-foot chip shots. So I want you, after you finish the 20-foot putts, I want you to then go and mark off roughly 20 feet and hit chip shots, again, to that same pin. Lastly, what I want you to be able to do is I want you to then pace off 20 yards from the green. Now, you may not, depending on your facility, may not be able to do that around the putting green. So you might have to go out to the range for this step here and just guesstimate roughly 20 yards. And I want you to hit 20 to 30 yards worth of pitch shots. And I want you to do that. But there's a key to this. I don't want you to just rake and hit the 20 to 30 shots one right after another. What I want you to do for each shot, including on the putting green, your chip shots, and your 20-yard chip shots, what I want you to do is I want you to treat it as though it was an individual shot, and I want you to go through your pre-shot routine for every single shot that you do. Do that for the hour. I don't want you to hang around and then hit another bucket of balls. This is to dedicate an hour to that specific first step. The second step, what I want you to do the following week is I want you to now back that out to 40 feet for the putts, 40 feet for the chip shots, and 40 yards for the pitch shots. And on the last week or the third week of that month, I want you to back it out a little bit further to 60 feet for the putts, 60 feet again for the chips. If possible, if you don't have the ability at your particular facility, come as close as you can to that, and then 60 yards, of course, for your pitch shots. The reason why I picked those ranges, guys, and I'm going to clarify this for you as well, is this is a key area, I believe, in the short game. We always talk about within 100 yards is an area that we have to practice in, which I agree wholeheartedly. But this is a range from that 60 yards in that most people struggle and lose a good majority of their shots and ultimately end up shooting a bad round or high-scoring round. So I want you to do that. And on the last week, I want you to, whether you're playing or you can repeat all three of them if you want, if you've got the time. And I want you to do that for 3 months. And I will guarantee it, because I've tested it with many of my clients. If you do that for the next 90 days, repeat those 3 steps, doing step 1, week 1, step 2, week 2, week 3, and then do the same thing next month, and do that for 3 months, I guarantee that you will improve your short game and you'll start to lower your scores. So, guys, having said that, you understand the parameters of what I've laid forth there, and hopefully I explained it well. Any thoughts or comments? I'm going to start with you, Pete, then John, and then Brian. Any thoughts or comments? And then let's talk about what you might do in a similar, given a similar opportunity to create a 90-day challenge. Pete, go ahead.
Well, I like what you did there, especially with the short game. I mean, it's always important to start out there, especially the first part of the year, because I think a lot of folks are so anxious to hit that they'll go straight to the full swing and hit a bunch of shots and sort of neglect the short game. So it's really important to get the short game started right away from putting to chipping to pitching. So I like the way that you went about that in the different segments. And I've done this in a little bit different fashion because I go indoors in the wintertime, and I actually have guys that we run similar things, actually doing putting, chipping, and pitching, with the simulator. So it's the same type of setup. But
right.
Yeah, I really like what you did. It's very similar as you were chatting at the beginning before we got started. I was jotting a bunch of stuff down, and it's very much along the same line. So not to steal your thunder, but really the same type of thing. Different drills right. Within those segments, but definitely doing putting, chipping, and pitching to begin, at least the first month that, and I think you're right. I think about 1 hour a week is good to start. I actually have a 30-day
right.
challenge that I do that's 3 hours a week.
Right.
We've chatted about that before, but it's a little bit more, extensive. But I like the 1 hour a week. It'll get them out there. It'll get them started, and get. I would do some things different. I have a circle drill which I put, 5 balls around the cup in a circle, and they start at 3 feet and hit all 5 in, and then go to 6 feet, then 9 feet, then 12 feet, and just keep going around in a circle. I have a clock drill which you put 12 balls in the center of the green, and you putt around the green as if you're putting to each hour hand. So 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, just go around the clock, and it's just practicing
right.
different distances and different looks. And then a fringe drill where you would start 3 feet off the fringe and then keep backing up 3 feet at a time until you get yourself about 45 feet away from the edge of the fringe, and you're just working on each time trying to roll it up to the fringe. Just different distance drill work. So I really like that. And in chipping, what I would do is I have something a little different. I take all the pins out when I work on chipping,
mm-hmm.
and what I like to do is have them pick a landing area first, and then they'll start with one club, and they want to land the balls on that landing area and figure out the ratio of how far it flew in the air to how far it rolls on the green. So they start to get an
right.
understanding of air time versus ground time, so that each one of their clubs, they have an idea. So that when they go to play and they're in a similar situation where they can look at the air time and then walk off how many paces it is once they land it on their safe area, they'll have a better idea of which club to pick. And it'll get them a little bit more, looking at the short game of, controlling the air and letting the roll, especially with chip shots, help them get closer to the pin. And then in pitching,
well said.
I like to do a bunch of different distances in pitching, sort of similar to what you're doing, but, giving them reps from, different distances, changing the length and pace of the swing to create that. So, very, very, very similar to what you're talking about.
Yeah, and John, before I move on to you, thank you for that, and some great ideas in your program as well. One of the reasons why I chose the specific distances that I did and the method, if you will, for a very good reason. One of the big problems that I see, and I'm sure you guys have seen this as well with a lot of our club or high handicap golfers, is they get out there and they'll hit a few short putts, then they'll maybe hit 2 or 3 lag putts, and then they'll hit the range. They might do a little bunker shot, and they're all over the place. They don't really practice with any sort of purpose. What I wanted to do was I wanted to create a specific drill challenge, if you will, that was very specific. I didn't want them hopping around. I wanted them to work on a specific task. In other words, starting with the 20-foot putts, then I wanted them to move to the 20-foot chip shots, and then ultimately the 20 yards, and then respectively the other 2 steps as well with different distances. The reason why I chose that is, we what I said in the beginning, we talk about the 100 yards in as being an area that really needs focus on, and there's no doubt. But most people, when they're hitting a full pitch shot to a green, whatever that might be 100 yards for them, it might be 120 if they're a really good player. Most people are pretty comfortable with that. But when they start getting into those distances like 60 yards and in, now you're not really talking a full swing. It might be a half, it might be a 3/4 swing, and nobody ever seems to practice that. But if you watch a lot of the pros during their practice sessions, they are working on those specific sort of in-between shots. And, Pete, as you said, sort of mixing up the distances. I wanted to give them specific distances like 20, 40, and 60 because the in-between distances, they're going to get an idea. They know what a 20-yard pitch shot is going to feel like. They're going to know what a 40 and a 60, and they can kind of gauge in between those distances as they continue their practice session. And I wanted to keep it specifically separate from one of the things I didn't want, as I said earlier, what I don't want the golfers to do is I don't want them to go to the practice range, hit a bucket of balls, and then go to the step because they're going to be tired. They're not going to, their muscles are going to be a little bit sore from beating balls for an hour or so, and then to go to the step. So I wanted them to keep it entirely separate from their regular instruction or their regular practice routine so that they can dial in on these specific tasks. And that's why I chose that. John, what about you? Any thoughts or comments about what I put forth, the 90-day challenge, and then maybe give us a little bit of an idea of what you might like to do?
First of all, Ted, thanks again for having me on the show, and I like what you said, and Pete as well. I mean, I think it's a lot of what I'm going to say is going to be very similar. One of the first things that I do, because typically, when you get into the spring months and the winter, when you first start with people, you're coming off the holidays, is I first of all like to do an assessment of their golf shape. I mean, as far as their physical shape, because I know for myself, I gained some weight over the holidays. I think like we all do, and so one of my goals for me personally is as I increase my cardio workouts, I've really bumped those up to kind of get that weight off. And so one of the things that I do with the students is I talk to them about that to begin with, because I put them into really 2 categories. From do they need to maybe lose a little bit of weight and get their cardio up, or do they need to gain some strength? And so I give them some exercises to get their golf muscles, and this is because a lot of what I'm doing is indoors. So this is, I really want to emphasize this. It's a lot easier to emphasize this in this early spring than it is in July. So it's, I really try to get this, hey, this is not something we're just going to do for a week. This is not a 90-day thing. This is for the rest of your life. These are the exercises. If you want to play better golf, this is what you need to do. The next thing I do is pitching, and you guys have already talked about that. In fact, I just did a video series it's called the Pitch Perfect Scoring System. I'm a big believer the average golfer is not going to hit the green in regulation. And if you can pitch the ball, Harvey Pinnock said this, if you can pitch the ball close to the hole, it makes putting a lot easier. So the better you are at pitching, the fewer putts you're going to have. Obviously, your score will be lower. So I really emphasize the pitching, and I like the idea of what you're talking about with the distance is, anything under 60 yards is where the majority of people are going to be in 2 to 3 shots or maybe 4 shots. And then putting, there's a lot of different putting. A lot of times there's 2 things I really spend a lot of time on with putting. Number 1 is their setup, but number 2 is the time of their stroke. I want them to take the putter back into the ball in 1 second. So I have a metronome that I use. Again, this is something that you can do indoors. You can do this in your home. But that's what tour players do, is they have a repeatable stroke. They have a repeatable swing where their club goes back into the ball in the same time every time. I emphasize in the full swing, I emphasize the importance of driving. Getting your first shot out there is very important. So I definitely, as the weather starts getting warmer, we get outside, or maybe if we're hitting, from the inside out to the outside, I do some of that. But one of the first things that I do with them is right off the bat is I try to sit down with them and set out, all right, here are our goals. Where are your handicap? Because right now, what are your goals? What do we need to do? Do you need more distance? Do you need to improve your putting? Do you need to work on your up and down percentage? Try to set a plan for the year, and I try to emphasize to every student that you need to take a playing lesson. When the weather gets warmer, we need to take a playing lesson and not worry about hitting 7 irons off the tee. We need to focus on actually being able to go out there and lower our score. So that's kind of in the 90 days, the first 90 days, that's kind of the way I approach it.
Yeah, and those are some great tips as well, and some great ideas, John. And I agree wholeheartedly. And make no mistake, for those of you tuning into the show tonight, when I talk about this 90-day challenge, this is certainly not going to be the only thing. You're going to obviously have to continue to working on some of the other things. But again, I think a lot of our amateur golfers lose a tremendous amount of strokes. I feel, anyways, from what I've observed over the years, from that sort of 60-yard range and end. Most people that have played golf for any length of time, they can get to most greens 2, 3, or even 4 shots depending on the length of the hole. But then once they get in, as you pointed out, John, they're not hitting. A lot of them aren't getting in on the green in regulation, and this is where that short game is going to really fall in. The reason why I specifically also wanted to point out about the lag putting, this is a great opportunity. You can't always judge the speed of a green when you're hitting 3 or 4 foot putts all the time, which I see a lot of these guys out there doing. They get in, they hit these short putts, and you can certainly around the hole get an idea. But how many times have we seen a lot of our amateur golfers out there, they'll hit the far side of the green, they're nowhere near the pin, and they have no idea of the speed or feel that they're going to need. Now, obviously, it is going to change with conditions. But if they are focusing on these lag putt drills that I'm giving them to do over the course of 90 days, when they get up there, they're going to be much more confident. They're going to know if they get a 20 to 25-foot putt, they're going to know generally the feeling that they're going to need to with the stroke to be able to execute that. The same thing, and again, I know they're not always going to be faced with a 60-foot putt. Some greens are not maybe designed that big, but a lot of our modern courses, they can be pretty big. And there's nothing worse than getting on that, far side of the green and you've got a 50 or 60 foot putt and you have no idea how hard to hit it. So this is why I specifically picked those types of drills, because these are areas that most golfers, I guarantee it, don't practice or practice very, very little. And, again, some of the other areas that we've talked about, certainly they need to keep them tuned up. But most of our golfers spend a lot of time in the same areas of practice, day in, day out, year out, and they never seem to improve. But there's areas of the game, some of which I talked about, obviously some of which you guys have talked about so far, and Brian, you're going to come up here in just a second, that they also need to pay attention to. If they want to improve, these are some of the things that they're going to have to start working on a little bit more diligently, and not just sort of haphazardly where they hit a few shots and then, sort of fall away and get into something else that they want to do. They're just not going to do it. John, thanks for your thoughts and input as well. Brian, you're up. Any thoughts or comments to what I've laid out there so far, and then let us know what you think you'd like to do if you were presenting a 90-day challenge to some of your students out there.
Sure, Ted. But first off, thanks for having me on the show again. And I love listening to Pete and John and what you said. It's a tough act to follow going third here, but I made some notes and I'll chime in on this. Up here in New Jersey, most of our players haven't touched the club in 2, 3, 4 months, depending on the winter and stuff. So my challenge that I was thinking about is starting out is look at your clubs, look at your equipment, go get your clubs re-gripped. That's the first thing I always look at, in the spring. Are my clubs ready for me to play? So, and I think a lot of that gets overlooked by a lot of players, and they haven't touched their clubs in a while. So I would definitely get the clubs re-gripped. That's going to save you some shots. The other thing, since we're talking about the short game and stuff, go get a putter fitting. Putting is about 43% of the game, and it's the one club we're going to use more than any other club. Make sure that club fits you and it fits your stroke. And most people just pay attention to the driver and then the irons and hardly wedges and hardly ever the putter. But definitely go get fit for a putter. I just had mine checked the other day, and I had the lie angle changed a little bit, and it made all the difference in the world. It just put so much confidence knowing that your putter fits you. So I would definitely recommend that. And then the other thing is, and John touched on this, set some goals. As the season starts out, what are your goals for improvement this season? Whether it's 90 days or for the whole season, what do you want to accomplish? And then put that down, and then ask yourself, how are you going to accomplish it? How much time do you need to put in to accomplish those goals? Talk to your coach, talk to your instructor, and see what's involved. You might have to work on your short game more or whatever, but definitely get some goals. And then the other thing I thought about up here in New Jersey is, for the first 30 days, don't burn yourself out. Most people aren't ready to play golf. They're not in shape for the spring, and they come out in April and they take all these swings and they're going at it, and they pull their back out or their hamstrings. Just kind of take it easy, if you're not golf ready. At least up here in the Northeast, I see that all the time. So those are the things I would challenge people the first 30 days. Get your clubs ready, make sure they fit you, and definitely go slow. And then the second month, commit yourself to some lessons, and continue that for the 90 days and throughout the year. A lesson every 2 weeks or 3 weeks is so beneficial, because you got somebody that knows your game, somebody that can help you, and somebody that can keep you on track. So that's very important. And then, Ted, the last thing I think, this time of year, I love watching golf on TV when I get a chance. There's so many great players, but I always ask my students, do you watch golf on TV? And a lot of them don't. And to me, that you're watching the best players, and you can see how they putt, and you can see how they chip, and their routines and stuff. There's so much to learn just from watching the game, and I think that's important. And I really challenge people to get, spend 15 minutes on Saturday and Sunday just watching golf. It's going to help their swing, help their rhythm, and their game all over. So that's where I would go with that, Ted.
Right. Well said, Brian. One of the things, too, that I like to emphasize when I work with a lot of my corporate clients is that sort of pre-shot routine. This is the perfect time of year. I mean, most of them, I get after them and I say, look, through the winter months, if you're up in the northeast or northern states, or many of the ones I still communicate back home in Canada, I say, don't become a couch potato and just sit there. If you can't get to an indoor facility, here's some drills and things that you can do in your home. Some can involve the putter. Some can involve, depending on their circumstances, they can take a short iron, whether it be a wedge or 9-iron or something along that, and I'll give them specific drills that they can do. I want them to work on their grip. I want them to work on their posture and their stance. And then, as John pointed out, we've all put on a few fresh pounds, I'm sure, through the winter. Maybe not everybody, but I know I have. I'm in that boat too, John. But let's get ourselves into a good routine. You don't have to hit the gym and bulk up or anything like that, but you want to start getting your flexibility, because there's nothing worse, as I'm sure all of three of you would attest to. There's nothing worse than if you've been sitting around for 2 or 3 months because the weather's not been that great, and you're kind of out of shape. Your muscles aren't really warmed up, if you will. You haven't been doing any stretching or anything that's really gotten your juices going. And then, Brian, as you pointed out, you get out there and they start swinging the clubs, and the next thing you know, they're arching their back, their hand on their hip, and they've already started off the season in a bad way. So what I would say is do virtually everything that we've talked about here so far tonight. All three of you guys have given some great pointers, some great comments, and I think what I want them to do that are listening to the show is whatever routine that you put into play, get together, obviously, with your local professional and get them to help guide you and lead you into some kind of format, whether you take my 90-day challenge or any of the other guys' challenges or another professional that you might be working with. Get out there and get your game plan going now. Even if you can't go and hit balls right now because your circumstances are such that, again, the climate or you don't have a good indoor facility nearby to do that, at least reach out to your local professional, start the dialogue going and say, I need to get something. What can I be doing now to prepare for getting ready? Brian, you touched on some great things as well. Getting the clubs regripped. Getting your putter fitted. Make sure that your putter, as well as the other clubs, are fitted correctly. There's nothing worse than getting out there, regardless of what you're doing, whether you're playing golf or anything else, and you don't have the right tools for the task at hand. So that's a great point as well. Get out there and do some physical things and make sure that you're doing things to get yourself physically prepared as well. John, I want to go back to you for a second, and then Brian, I'll rotate to you, and then Pete, I'll let you bring up the rear a little bit. John, this is, I guess, a crucial time for a lot of our club golfers out there and high handicap golfers to really get in tune for the season. What types of things, I know you've mentioned a few of them already, but what specific things do you want your golfers, even if they can't get out and start hitting balls yet, what do you want them specifically to be working on right now in preparation for when they come to see you?
The first thing is I want them to work on their setup. I think that when I, have gone to tour events, when I've coached out on the PGA Tour and LPGA, the one thing that I see every single tour player do is work on their setup. That is the most universal thing that I see. And they do it with alignment aids and real, target line, ball position, distance from the ball, those things, because even the best players in the world get off. And it's more, I think it's so important because, when you look at a tour player like Tiger and he's swinging at 120 miles an hour, if he's off a little bit in his setup, that ball is going to go offline. And so, I try to emphasize that how important that is, because none of the other things can happen if you don't get the setup right. And then I focus a lot on timing in the swing. I think that that's one of the biggest mistakes that I see a lot of young teachers coming up. I think they get too wrapped up in I think video is important, but I don't think you need to give people an hour's worth of video. I think that to be able to address someone and say, okay, you take the club back too slowly and then you have a very fast transition, or you take the club back too fast and you have a slow, and because you take the club back too fast, you have a long swing, and because you have a long swing, you release the club early, those things. I try to emphasize to them how important the timing is, because timing, if you have, and this was really, as a young instructor, getting to watch Payne Stewart take lessons, when I actually saw Payne Stewart swing in slow motion, I realized it was not nearly as good as I thought it was. But his tempo and timing were so beautiful that he looked like an artist, that you just were captivated by that. So I really try to emphasize that to my students. And you can do this with the orange whip. You can do this with having people use a metronome. You can do this like a lot. If I get someone who has a really quick golf swing, I will have them maybe hit 7 irons 70 or 80 yards. To force them. I would give them a target and say, I'm going to give you way too much club, and now you're going to have to slow your swing down. You're going to have to feel the club head to fit the way I want it to be. Or if someone's too slow, I'll give them exercises that will speed up their swing. So I think those are things that a lot of students will really, because if you can get the timing of your swing down, then your distance control is going to be good in your short game, and you're going to get the most power that you have out of your swing.
Yeah, well said, John. You're exactly right. And I think anything really that you can do to prepare, especially as the season starts to come together. I mean, again, as I mentioned earlier, I know for some that are particularly up in the Northeast and even the Northwest and in areas where maybe the climate is not conducive and you don't have the opportunity to get out there and actually, hit some balls. There's a lot of things that you can be doing. And as you pointed out, John, working on the setup. You're exactly right. We see this all the time. And this is why, it is important to watch the pros. You don't have to emulate the pros as far as the way they swing at swing the club or anything like that, because everybody's unique and we all have our own unique swings. But you can certainly take some notes as to how they're setting up and how they're addressing the ball and how they have sort of their pre-shot routines. Again, you can develop your own pre-shot routine, but you might get some great ideas. Brian, what about you? We're getting, as you mentioned off the air, you've been kind of working a little bit on your own here in preparation for the season to get tuned up, but it's not always easy when you got a little bit of snow on the ground, so you have to go indoors. Maybe for those that don't have access to a facility, what are have you got any great drills that you'd like to share that they can do in their own home in preparation to get ready to come out and see you?
Sure, Ted. I think up here in the Northeast, I think if we can keep our bodies golf ready for the spring, that's a big jump when you come out. And I was just jotting down some notes. Some of the things I like to do is I definitely like to work on my core. I do a lot of planks and a lot of squats, trying to get the leg strength strong. And then down in my basement, I've got a cinder block wall, and I've got a 4-pound medicine ball that I like to throw against the wall, from a impact position through. And if you do that like 10 times and the ball comes back, man, I can really feel the sequencing that I'm looking for. I'm getting my hips involved and transferring my weight to the left side, and you can get your heart rate going. So it keeps you in shape, So if you do that three times a week or whatever, 10 to 20 throws, that is so beneficial to get your body ready for the spring. And the other thing, and John mentioned a good point, work on your setup, but do it also in front of a mirror. Look at some of your positions, look at the top of the swing. Yeah. Where's the club face? Is it positioned? And just get a club in your hand every day, before the spring hits and just swing it. That's so beneficial to get your hand strength stronger, your body loosened up to swing, and, all that rotational stuff you're doing just by swinging a club is going to help you in the springtime. And there's no reason why, 30 days before we get out there, we can start getting our bodies ready for this season. It's just going to really help. Even you don't have to hit a ball to get better, but you do have to work on your setup and get your hands prepared and your clubs. And if you can get your body going, get it stronger, you're going to come out of the gates flying.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Well said. Pete, I know you've got a great training device that you have been using for many, many years with your students. And it sort of leads into what I want to ask you is obviously something similar to what I just asked the other two gentlemen. But we also have to work on our technique. And, again, if we don't have the option to get out there and hit balls, I think your training device, if you want to I'm going to give you an opportunity to give a shameless plug here about the device and how they can maybe be using that to help hone in on that technique. So go ahead.
Well, you're right, Ted. It's called the Simple Swing Repeater, and over the years, I developed it to enhance my swing program and the way I think the club should be, moved throughout the swing. So it's really a great deal for all of my players who, in the wintertime, don't have the ability to get out. They can take a club and they can work on those particular positions, looking at where they all know what they should be, and so they can take it. I even took it one step further with. I have a piece of rebar that we actually put a grip on and use it so it's a little bit heavier weighted, and we actually trimmed the end of it down and stuck a club head on the end of it. And so now you not only move it into positions, but it's heavy. And, it doesn't take but, about 3 or 4 sets, and your arms are barking at you. But it's just another way to work out and make it work. And I'm a big proponent on, I know a lot of guys don't like to talk positions, but I do, because I think they're important, especially with what I'm doing, and then it all gets, put into a free flowing swing. But one other thing that, I've been beneficial, you were talking about over the winter months, gaining weight. I'm on the opposite side. I'm 40 pounds down. because I'm met up with my chiropractor does a program through the Wellness Way, which is on nutrition and looking at the foods that people eat. And that's another thing that I'm, bringing out to my players too, is getting them to understand a little bit about nutrition, what they eat, and, and getting them to understand that, having the right fuel is going to help you play better, and it's going to help you last longer on the golf course. And so, that's a part of what I'm doing with a lot of my players now, is to make sure that, along with some fitness, but also the nutrition side, make sure they're, eating the right things and doing the right things. And it's been a great program to be able to marry into what I'm doing with the golf and the nutrition. And of course, I've got a daughter who's got a degree in it, so it's even helpful there to bounce ideas off of her from some nutrition and some workouts that can enhance the different things that we're doing. So, John and Brian had some great things too. Lumping all these things together, I think you're going to come out of the winter ready to go.
Yeah, well said, Pete. Really the key thing, guys, and let me just touch a little bit on nutrition. You're exactly right, Pete. I'm going to be in just a few hours. I'm going to be hitting another milestone. Another year is going to be ticking. Obviously, it's a subtle hint that my birthday is tomorrow. So,
happy birthday, Ted.
Well, thank you. So I'm trying to be more conscious of what I eat. I mean, I always eat, pretty good for the most part. I do cheat a little bit, I think, as we all do from time to time. But, when you start getting, especially when you get above your 50s, obviously your body, you start to change a little faster than you'd like sometimes. So you have to be more conscious of that. And one key thing that guys, I think that is important to touch on, because obviously as we all start to age, we notice energy levels change as well. And, doesn't matter whether you're playing up in the Northeast in the summer or even here in the winter or in the fall down here in Florida, sometimes the heat can really get to you. And if your energy is zapped because you're not nutritionally eating well, it's very, very hard not only to execute the shots that need to be executed, but it's hard to keep those energy levels up to allow you to be able to think your way around the golf course. It's not just a matter of the physical side of the game, but the mental side of the game as well. If you're not sharp, and by the time you get to hole number 10, you're almost out of steam, and I don't care whether you're driving a cart or not, mentally you can be drained playing those 18 holes, whether you're driving a cart or not. So, nutrition, Pete, as you said, is crucial and very, very important to make sure that you're eating some healthy foods. And, as much as I know when that cart girl comes out, we want to grab for a hot dog or some other snack that maybe not be the best thing, or a couple of beers, save the beer if you want to have a cold drink, maybe for after round when you're celebrating how well you've been playing. But that's an area too, I think, guys, and I'm sure you'd all agree, that you want to be able to do things that are going to keep your energy levels up so that you can be sustained throughout those 18 holes and be able to play your best golf and give yourself the best opportunity. So, guys, let me ask you, we've got a little bit of time left here. Great job, by the way. I want to ask you, from your own standpoint, what do you personally, and I'm going to start from the original order, Pete, John, and then Brian, what do you do personally through the winter months to kind of keep yourself tuned up and sharp in order to be able to get ready for what we traditionally would call the regular golf season? What do you do, Pete?
Well, it started for me with the nutritional side, trying to get myself healthy and just better handle, the workload and what happens. So, I was fortunate enough to get down and really work into the nutrition side, and I've lost 40 pounds. So, I mean, it's been also a difference in getting the golf swing going, because I could tell you when you lose that weight and then you pick a club up and start swinging, it's different, totally different. So the balance was different. So what I've done this winter is really worked on indoors. I've just taken the swing and broke it down into the positions that I want to put it in, and just working on a little bit of timing, a little bit of balance, definitely in the setup, because now it's actually all pretty new. And it's a totally different feel. And, I picked up a 40-pound dumbbell the other day, and I thought, goodness gracious, no wonder I had more balance back then, having that big load sitting on me. But, it's a lot of weight. And so, that to me is just, I like to slow it down, really, really work at, making sure that, as John mentioned before, that the setup is right, and really start to move the club and just work on getting the hands and arms and the club and the body working together, and, working on the routines and just making sure that, the body physically can move properly, and, doing some stretching and some, just some routine exercises too, just to make sure that, as I come out in the spring and, as, Brian so well put, I mean, they come out and they'll hit, 5,000 balls in about 28 minutes just to, because they haven't been hitting balls, because they're so ready to go. And, you have to get yourself prepared so that when you do come out, and start really hitting shots that, the body's ready and ready to work.
Well said. John, what about you? I know probably some similar steps as Pete just talked about, but what about yourself? You've got to obviously keep in good shape and keep yourself golf ready, if you will, as the new season rolls around. What do you do? Anything specific?
Well, this year, Ted, I really have increased my cardiovascular. I'm doing a lot of, whether it's on the treadmill, the gym I belong to has a track, and I've been on there. I've been going. Instead of before, I would kind of I go to the gym anywhere from 5 to 6 days a week. I used to go in and warm up for about 15 or 20 minutes, and I would go do weights or whatever. Now it's much more than that. I'm doing a minimum of 30 minutes. I'm trying to of just cardio, and one day a week I'll walk 5 miles. A lot of days. Today I walk 2. Tomorrow I might walk 3. I'm trying to really increase that to keep myself, to keep my weight where I want it, coming off the winter months, and really trying to strengthen my heart as well. I just turned 51, so, I know that's important. I've always been pretty good about my diet. I do like to cheat, and I do like the occasional beer. So, those are things that when I do that, I just try to work out more the next day to offset it. But when it comes to golf, I really spend a lot of time, and we have in New Albany, we do have a facility where we can hit into indoors. We can open the doors if we get a pretty decent day and hit out into the range. This is one thing I would recommend to all the listeners out there. Don't worry about hitting drivers. I hit nothing but wedges, especially when it's cold. I open those doors up. It's 30 degrees or 20 degrees. I don't want to hit a driver in 20-degree weather. You don't see tour players playing in 20-degree weather. So I feel I would get much more out of my workout, because what I'm afraid is going to happen is if I start going out at full swings and that cold air hits, I'm afraid I'm going to pull a muscle and hurt myself. So I really stick to pitching, and we have a little indoor putting area, and I'll spend time doing putting. I love to swing the orange whip, and I'm real big into medicine balls. Throw it with a lot of my students, we'll throw the ball back and forth to each other, an 8-pound ball, and turn and toss the ball and really work on our rotary motion. So I'm trying to do a lot more of anything I can do that's rotary, that stretches or strengthens. That's what I'm going to do.
Well said, and some great tips and pointers as well. Thanks, John. Brian, I know you've probably touched on a few already tonight, but what specifically are you doing? Anything to get yourself golf ready for the season?
Ted, the wintertime's great to recharge the batteries. That's number one after the season. But I love to walk. I'm always walking around the neighborhood maybe 3 times a week. I got to keep my legs strong, and golfers got to understand if they don't have a good solid base underneath them, those legs are weak. It's going to affect the rest of the swing. So, and you got to be walking, because a lot of golfers walk. It helps. So I do a lot of walking during the week, and then I've got a bike, an exercise bike down in my basement, and I like to get either 3 to 6 miles, about 3 days a week. So that's important. Medicine balls, like I said before, I got one in my basement, and I do my rotary throws, and like John said, that's a great exercise to keep your body in shape, because we hardly do anything rotary during our days. We're either sitting, lying down, or walking forward. We don't turn our bodies, and golfers have to realize, the golf swing's a rotary action. We have to be strong there. And at home, in my house, I've got a club in probably every room, especially my putter. So I'm always working on my putter. I put clubs in a room, so I just pick it up, look at my setup, grip it. So I got plenty of clubs lying around the house just to get it in my hand. And then I like to watch golf on TV in the wintertime. When January hits and the pros are playing, that gets me pumped up. It makes, watching these guys play, and there's so many great players, so that gets me going. And I think that can help anybody, by watching it and stuff like that. But those are the things I do during the wintertime, just try to recharge the battery a little bit and make sure my body's strong. I try to get as strong as I can in the wintertime because once the season hits, it's more of a maintenance kind of phase for our bodies and stuff. But, if a couple winters ago I had a shoulder operation and I couldn't work out like I usually do, and that season I felt the difference. My legs weren't underneath me. I really never swung the club that well because of my shoulder, but I could tell physically I just wasn't as strong because I didn't prepare myself like I usually do in the wintertime, and it makes a difference. Get out there and get golf ready. That's what I would tell
well
people.
said. Yeah, well said, Brian. I agree wholeheartedly, and I, much like all of you, do a lot of similar things. I won't get into a whole myriad of things because I don't want to sort of get repetitive, but I do a lot of the similar things that all three of you do as well to keep myself. And one of the things I did this year, and for those of you that fall into this category, get your eye prescription updated to make sure that you can actually see the ball. If you're using glasses that you had for 4 or 5 years and your prescription's a little outdated or contacts, it might be a good idea to visit your optometrist and get that updated because you can't be, worried about where your drive's going, how far it's going rather, if you can't see where it's going. So make sure you get that updated as well.
That's a great
point.
Great
Conversation. Yeah, you'd be surprised. I know that even for myself, I noticed my night vision, my night driving was getting a little bit foggy, and I thought, well, it's time. It'd been 2 years. I usually try to go every year, but it'd been a couple of years, and it didn't change a lot, but just changed a little bit. So that's something to think about as well, especially as we age. Our bodies change, not just physically, but your eyes change as well, and that can make a difference, especially with putting too. A lot of people have difficulty reading greens as it is. Well, it makes it a whole heck of a lot easier when you've got the right prescription glasses on. So get your prescriptions updated, guys. Guys, I want to thank you for a great discussion tonight, and for those tuning into the show. Whether you take my 90-day challenge or you sort of incorporate a lot of things, isn't really what's important. What's important is to develop yourself a routine that you can be consistent with in order to help you improve as you go along. There's nothing worse than just going out to the range and raking and hitting balls because you're not going to improve. You want to connect with one of these three guys, which they're going to tell you exactly how you can do that if you want, because most of them, if not all of them, are online as well. So if you can't visit them personally, they can probably help you online. But you need to connect with your local golf professional and get them to help you put a good game plan together, your own sort of 90-day challenge, if you will. They'll certainly be able to step up and give you some great pointers and some great tips as we gear up for the new season. And as Brian pointed out there at the end, watch the guys, especially it's getting kind of exciting now. Tiger's getting back into the game and lots of good fever running, if you will, and excitement about him being back in. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he was about 3 or 4 back in the Bay Hill Invitational in the first round. So it's going to be an exciting weekend. Brian, I'm going to start with you, and then John, and then Pete. How can the folks that are interested in maybe reaching out and connecting with you, what's the best way to do that?
Sure, Ted. Thanks. If anybody's up in New Jersey, up here in the north, I'm at Montclair Golf Club. Stop by. The number there is 973-239-0160, or you can email me at briandobbypga@yahoo.com. Good luck to everybody, and Ted, thanks for having me on the show again. And Pete and John have great seasons, man. I appreciate everything you said. I learned more from listening to you guys than anybody's going to learn from me. So I appreciate that, guys. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Brian, as always, for jumping in on the panel. Appreciate your thoughts and input as well. And And the idea is we want to learn from each other and help one another as we progress through our careers, but also we want to help the listeners out there that are tuning in. John, best way to reach you if somebody wants to connect and maybe get a little help with their game?
Well, first of all, happy birthday, and thanks again for having me on the show. And Pete and Brian, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. One of the best ways to see my videos, I work for a company called golfswing.com, and if you go to golfswing.com/John Decker, and I spell my name JONDECKER, and John Decker is all one word. I have over 90 videos on there, from putting all the way to full swing and pre-shot routine and all that. You can also follow me on Facebook under John Decker Golf Instruction. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and I post videos on there on all those social media platforms. And as far as my book goes, my book is available in hardcover, softcover, or an ebook, and it's on Amazon and Barnes & Noble websites. And the name of the book is Golf is My Life, Glorifying God Through the Game. And it is a Christian book with a lot of golf stories in there. I do have a Bible study with it as well that I've gone to churches, I've come to golf courses and will speak. And if you have a junior group or ladies group or men's group or something along those lines, I'm willing to come and speak at groups like that. So if you want to do that, you can reach me on any of the social media platforms, and I'll be glad to come to your area and talk a little bit about that. And again, thanks again, Ted, for having me on.
Oh, always a pleasure, John. Thank you. Pete, how can the folks reach out to you if they want a little help with their game?
Well, again, thanks, Ted, for having me on. And John and Brian, it's great chatting with you tonight. And as Brian said, it's always great to listen to what you guys have to say and continue to learn. They can find me at plainsimplegolf.com. That's PLANE is the plane. All my contact info is out there. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We've got some exciting things coming. I'm just hooking up with Blast Motion for this year, so I'm looking forward to all the things that are going to be coming in that direction, from the platforms that they have and the things that can work out. So, if you're interested, I do a bunch of online instruction as well. So if you're not in my area, don't hesitate to give me a holler, and be happy to chat with you and see what we can do for your game. So, and then especially happy birthday, Ted.
Thank you
Ted,
very
happy
much.
Birthday, man.
I appreciate it, and I promise you that wasn't a shameless plug for my birthday. I just thought I would throw that out there since it was sort of talking about aging and whatnot. But guys, as always, Pete, John, and Brian, thank you as always. I really mean this sincerely. I appreciate you guys stepping up in the Coach's Corner panel, and I like having you guys come back on as much as you want, because you do a fantastic job, and I get lots of great feedback from the listeners, and not just the amateur golfers out there, but obviously a lot of fellow professionals that enjoy the segment. We've got some new ones that have joined in on the panel discussions this year, so I'm excited to give them their shot. And this is my 6th season doing this broadcast, Golf Talk Live, and season 4 for having Coach's Corner. And everybody enjoys this segment, as well as not just the guys that are participating in it, but the people listening in it as well. So again, thanks, guys. Have a great evening and a great weekend, and I look forward to you guys coming back on future panels. So go and enjoy the Bay Hill Invitational, guys, and keep doing all the great things that you're doing, and I'll see you next time on the Coach's Corner panel.
Thanks,
Great.
Ted.
Thanks, Ted. Thanks, Pete. Thanks, John. Be good, guys.
Thanks, guys.
All right. That was my very special guest on the Coach's Corner panel. It's Pete Buchanan, John Decker, and Brian Dobby. And as they mentioned, you can find them virtually on all kinds of social media platforms. So if you're interested in working with them, by all means, feel free to reach out to them. And for some reason, if you're having difficulty finding them, you're welcome to reach out to me, and I will certainly be more than happy to forward you their contact information if you didn't happen to get it, or you can go back and listen to the show in its entirety if you're just joining in a little bit late, and you can get the information there. But either way, always look forward to helping these guys out. They do a great job on the panel discussions every year. when they come on, and some of them come back on a little bit more often than others, obviously as their schedules permit. But I appreciate their thoughts and input, and I know that those of you tuning into the show as well. I got a great guest coming up here in just a minute or two, and I'm going to tell you just a little bit about him. His name is Chris Doster. I had a pleasure of talking with him a couple of months ago on the phone. Just a very interesting gentleman, and he's a digital marketer, works with a lot of different clients, but particularly in the golf industry. He'll talk a little bit about that. He's also an author. He's been involved in a number of books. We'll talk about those as well. And also likes to blog as well, not just about golf, but other areas as well. We'll add that in the mix as well. But his name is Chris Doster. He's going to be coming on here in just a few moments. But let me remind, as I wait for him, let me remind everybody, of course, we are live every Thursday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. Central, or 7 to 9 for those of you on the East Coast, on the blogtalkradio.com network. Just go to blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live, or just type Golf Talk Live up in the search key, and that will take you to the main page. And, of course, we'll be front and center right there. But for some reason, if you're not able to join us live, not to worry. Just visit that link anytime, blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live, and just scroll down the page to the on-demand section, and you'll see all of the previously aired shows, including tonight's show will be there a little bit later on after the broadcast, and you can listen to the recorded version. So if 6 to 8 isn't a good time for you to tune in, not to worry. You can go and listen any time when it's convenient for you. And you can, of course, by visiting that link, you can listen anywhere around the globe. We have listeners that literally tuning in from virtually every country that you can imagine around this globe. The show has done extremely well in the first 5 years, and I'm hoping to make year number 6 even better than the previous 5. So we're going to keep plugging away here. Also, if you're somebody that enjoys maybe listening on a different social media platform, you can also find Golf Talk Live on iTunes.com, Stitcher.com, and now TuneIn.com. And again, just type in Golf Talk Live under the podcast section, search key, and that will take you right to the main page. For those of you that maybe want to also tune in on Tuesday mornings, let me just remind everybody, of course, Tuesday mornings on the same networks, blogtalkradio.com, you can tune into the Women of Golf show with my good friend and co-host, LPGA professional and Legends Tour player Cindy Miller, as we talk golf every Tuesday morning for the ladies out there. Of course, many of them tune into Golf Talk Live, but I wanted to do a show that was specific to the ladies out there. We've had the pleasure of interviewing some of the legends of the game, Kathy Whitworth, Rosie Jones, Carol Mann, Jane Blaylock, and many, many others that have been on the show. Shirley Spork, of course, one of the original 13 founders of the LPGA Tour, was the guest of mine as well. So a lot of great ladies on there, many up-and-comers from the Symetra Tour. We've had the opportunity of interviewing them as well on the show. But the show obviously is geared more for the women's market to try and foster the growth there as more and more women become aware of the game and interested in taking it up. We want to do our part. So make sure you tune in Tuesday mornings at 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the blogtalkradio.com network, and look for the Women of Golf, and you'll hear Cindy and I every Tuesday morning. And we've got a great show coming up next week, so you want to make sure. In fact, it's going to be one of our panel discussions, as I mentioned to you last week and the previous week. We are going to start hosting every third Tuesday of the month beginning next week, which will be March 20th. We're going to have, for the full hour, we're going to have a great panel discussion, and my very special guest, one of my very special guests next week is Gianna Rojas, the one-handed lady golfer, as she champions really for many, many individuals out there that have disabilities or difficulties, and she's a real champion, and she's using golf as one of her platforms as trying to sort of spread the word. So we're going to have a great discussion next week, so make sure you tune in next Tuesday morning. As I mentioned, I'm going to be joined now by my very special guest, Chris Doster, a digital marketer and blogger and author on the show, and we're going to have a great discussion on the second half of the show, so please welcome my very special guest, Chris Doster.
Ted, great
Chris, good
show.
evening.
Boy, I enjoyed. Yes, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad that you were able to tune into a little bit before. we had a great Coach's Corner panel on this evening, all of them from the Northeast. Brian Dobby, of course, is from New Jersey, so he's not too far away from where you are. Of course, Chris is up in Lake George, New York. And I've already told them a little bit about you. But I want to mention a great book, and we're going to talk about that here in a little bit, that you authored, and that was Golf Discovered, Find Your Game Before You Lose Your Mind, which was kind of an interesting title. And we're going to talk about some other things. Another book that you co-authored with Brett Freeman, who's going to be on next week, The Club, a User's Manual, and it's based on the teachings of Manuel de la Torre. And also, we'll sort of bring this all in as well, but you were also involved in a different line of work, if you will, and also were involved in a book, Skin is In, Secrets of a Plastic Surgeon. We'll talk about that as well as doing some blogging at chrisdoster.com. But Chris, let me just ask you this. Let's sort of go back a little bit. I took up golf at a very early age. You were a little bit later to the game. Tell us a little bit about how you sort of got drawn to golf, and roughly how old were you when you sort of picked up your clubs?
And Ted, I got to tell you, I didn't touch a golf club until I was 29 years old. I was in the medical sales industry, and I guess I'm what you call an adult learner. And some of us adult learners, your prior three guests will probably know unequivocally, are very difficult to work with. And I was one of them.
Right.
So, and it's funny, you mentioned eyesight, and I could not agree with you more, Ted. I would recommend to anybody that's approaching the age that you are, and by the way, happy pre-birthday, and the age that I am, older than you, go see not only an optometrist, but an ophthalmologist. Okay, those are the guys that really do the serious stuff. And that's how my career started. I was in medical sales after the University of South Alabama, where I went to college, and ended up in Mobile, Alabama for 25 years in the outside sales career. And so as I, went to my first national sales meeting, I want to say it was 1989. I'm letting my age go now, but we all got on a bus and went to a golf course. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, this is a medical device national sales meeting. Why are we going to a golf course? And I quickly found out back the day that most every medical device sales rep played golf, because guess what? That's where they get 4 or 5 hours of the doctor's or the purchasing agent or the hospital manager's undivided attention. So that was kind of my foray into golf. And I also had an interesting friend in Mobile, Alabama, and I'm sure some of your listeners know about Mobile. It's a classic southern city, great sports town, but a lot of great golfers came from Mobile. Jimmy Green, Heath Slocum went to South Alabama, my alma mater. But this individual I played basketball with until I was 31. I was a basketball player my whole life, high school, a little bit in college, and then leagues when I graduated. He actually dove for golf balls. He and his father, retired, Mr. Mack, and they would go to Skyline Country Club and the Linksman and all these courses that some people may have heard of in Mobile, and they would dive for golf balls. So when I found out that I should get into golf because I was in medical sales and doctors like golf, I went to him, and I met him at his house, and his basement was full of 10-gallon buckets full of golf balls and rusted clubs. You may have seen the commercial on Golf Channel, Second Swing, where they get clubs that people throw into ponds. Well, they actually did that. And so off I went, playing Spring Hill College and Gulf Pines, a South Alabama little muni track, if you will, Azalea City, a great municipal course in Mobile, by the way. I'd recommend for anybody, right across from the South Alabama campus, with clubs that were drugged out of a pond, balls that were retrieved by Mr. Mack and Marshall, and off I went. And no lessons, and I couldn't agree with one of your prior guests more. My gosh, if a pilot has to take lessons to learn how to fly, playing golf is harder than flying a plane, Ted. Why people don't take lessons, I don't know. So that was my introduction to the game, phase one.
Yeah, I think it's pride I think a lot of people are, and they're intimidated. Let's be honest. I mean, especially if they're new to the game. As somebody that was approaching their 30s, you really hadn't picked up a golf club before. You really probably didn't know a lot about the game other than what maybe you've seen on TV or talked with some friends and that. So here you are, you're going to go to a golf course that you maybe haven't been to before, and you're going to sign up for some lessons with somebody that you really don't know about a game that you don't know a lot about. It's very intimidating for a lot of people. And I think the older you are, when you take up golf, the more intimidating it is, because you've already sort of developed some other habits and things like that in sports. And, golf is a very unique sport. It's unlike any other game out there. And there are certain similarities to other sports, but it is uniquely different, and it takes a certain skill set. People don't realize just how difficult golf can be until you've actually stepped out there. That's why any of the critics out there that always say to me, well, golf's just a boring sport, you're chasing a little white ball, I don't get it. I always say to them, well, let's go to the practice tee, and I'll give you a free 1-hour lesson, and we'll see what you think about after. And I've never had anybody yet that didn't agree with me that it's a tough sport. So, but Chris, I want to ask you something too. Now you sort of moved. Again, some of you may not be familiar with the area. You mentioned you were down in Mobile, Alabama, and then just a few miles up the road, you went to Timber Creek Golf and Country Club in Spanish Fort, Alabama, and for 2 years you worked around the golfing machine instruction. Tell us a little bit about that. Tell for the folks that don't know what the golfing machine is, what we're referring to.
Well, before I answer that, could I just say one thing, Ted? You're absolutely correct. I was not to brag, but I was a basketball player and I was a shooter. And of course, right now, March Madness is in full swing. One of my favorite times of the year, second only to the Masters next month. And you're absolutely correct. The hand-eye coordination in many aspects and the skills you may have in other sports simply do not translate to golf in many cases. I could always putt. I think that's because I was a shooter, free throws. I could always chip. But goodness gracious, the full swing, it does not translate. You're absolutely correct. So a good friend of mine from college said, look, okay, you're in medical sales now. You're traveling around calling on doctors. You need to go get lessons for real. So he recommended a gentleman across the bay, and as you said, Timber Creek, 9-hole, 27-hole community. A gentleman named Ron Gring, and I have a lot of respect for that man. He's now in Phoenix, Arizona. He is one of 13, if I can get this correct, Ted, he is one of 13 golfing machine doctorate instructors in the world. And the golfing machine was geometric golf, positions, angle hinging, accumulators, probably and I write about it in the book, Golf Discovered, Find Your Game Before You Lose Your Mind, probably, without a doubt, the most complicated, intricate methodology created by man that plays the game of golf. So I went to see Mr. Gring at Timber Creek, and this is 1994 now. I'm letting my age go again. But he was one of the first, I believe, in the whole Gulf Coast, whether you're the Panhandle or all the way to Louisiana, that had one of the original A-Star systems. And if you know anything about, I think you and I talked about this, it was one of the first swing analysis software programs with a video camera. And so I show up, having played golf with rusted clubs and used balls, and ex-basketball player, at this state-of-the-art practice facility, Timber Creek, and I meet Mr. Gring, and for the next 2 years, I'm basically taking a sabbatical in the golfing machine, and I'm surrounded by Division I golfers from Auburn, Alabama, Todd Bailey, John Fridge, Glenn Natchik, who played on the Nike Tour, one of Ron's, key students, Joe Durant, Susie Redmond. A whole new world, a whole new culture, if you will, relative to golf, from equipment to apparel to lessons. And for 2 years, because this began my journey to try to find my game before I lost my mind, I bought a piece of property across the street from the pro shop, and I built a house. Right. And I was in my third medical device company, making way too much money than I should have. But for 2 years, 27 positions, pressure points. Your guests don't want to hear the specifics of the golfing machine. It may be a brilliant book written by Homer Kelly, but I just couldn't grasp it. A lot of people can't. Morgan Kressel, Bobby Clampett was a golfing machine guy with Ben Doyle. But my goodness, I was an athlete. I was a basketball player. It was touch. It was feel. And I just couldn't grasp it. And, God bless Ron Gring. He did all he could do with me, but I was an epic fail in the golfing machine. But I was blessed to be exposed to that environment and those people. Ended up at the PGA Merchandise Show with Ron and one of his good buddies, John Ricchetti, who has a golf show in Mobile, the John Ricchetti Golf Show by Miller Lite sponsors, I believe. Met the late, great Mo Norman at an exhibition. You and I talked about this because you knew Mo.
Right.
And that was the second step. I said, no, wait a minute. This guy for 2 hours, and, Lee Trevino said this, other professionals, greats have said, he may be the best ball striker ever. He certainly did not have golfing machine positions. He certainly did not follow the modules and the standards and the procedures, and that kind of inspired me, Ted, 1996 in that private exhibition, to look at, wow, there's got to be other ways besides just the golfing machine. And everybody's anatomy is different. Everybody's got a different fingerprint to their swing. And I met a man who was selling a book after Mo went over to his big Cadillac with clothes and empty Diet Coke cans in the back. Yeah. And he was selling a book called Golf Reform at Hand. And it was the impetus of what became Natural Golf, which was my next foray into the golf, trying to find my game.
Yeah, and Mo was interesting. Obviously, for those that didn't have the pleasure of meeting Mo, he wasn't obviously your typical golfer. He had a very unique way, and I won't get into it because I don't want to eat up your time. But you're exactly right, and I think Lee and many of the others that got a chance to see Mo and watch Mo. I won't go as far as to say that he was the best because, some might argue that Ben Hogan and others were, but he would certainly be in the top 5 of the best ball strikers that ever walked thus far. And it was just amazing to watch because it was very unorthodox, the way he swung the club compared to what you traditionally see, not just in the golf machine, but in other methodologies out there. So you're exactly right there, and Natural Golf was sort of his thumbprint, if you will, and it was certainly very successful and worked for him. I want to ask you, a little bit because I want to give you a chance to talk about your book and a little bit about that. But I want to first ask you about some of the myths and maybe some of the misconceptions that in today's sort of conflicting, because I sort of led into it, methodologies out there. And maybe offer some tips to some of the amateurs out that might be listening to the show tonight, because there are a lot of methodologies that are being thrown out there. And as you pointed out, and as we have many times on the show, everybody is different. Everybody's body style, type, and athleticism is different from one another. So it's very hard for the industry to sort of pigeonhole everybody into the same methodology or swing theory, if you will. So talk a little bit about that, maybe some of the myths and misconceptions that are out there.
Well, when it became obvious, Ted, that my career in medical sales was just kind of a sideline for me, and I was bitten by the golf bug, when I fell out of the graces with the inner circle of the golfing machine at Timber Creek, and God bless them all. They were awesome people. They did their best to try to help me find my game. I went home that summer, 1996, and met a man, Tony Luzak, who was basically validated what I watched for 2 hours with Mo Norman, who said unplayable in the clouds, pure as a driven snow. He was a savant. He was a savant. And so I'm hitting balls on the range in my hometown with my brother, up the visit, escaping the Mobile heat, and a man's watching me, 6'5", tailor-made, head to toe, comes over and says, "Tony Lozak, nice to meet you. Golfing machine?" And I went, "Yeah." So maybe I was doing it better than I thought. But anyway, Tony and I began a 20-plus year relationship, and he's the one that introduced me to what I believe is probably one of the most contentious spaces, if you will, I've ever seen, aside from Alabama versus Auburn fans or Democrats versus conservatives, and that's golf instruction. And I mean, literally in the years I've been involved, Ted, I've had, when I tried this methodology or stack and tilt or one plane swing or impact zone or peak performance, and I mention it to the pro, you see their face turning red. And I've heard of seminars where they come to blows almost over this methodology versus this theory versus, this opinion. And Tony exposed me to a lot of these myths and misconceptions, which is chapter 2 in my book, that Tony taught me and I saw myself as I went through methodology after methodology after methodology. It's almost many of them conflict with each other. And one of the ones that a lot of the amateurs might hear, Ted, is, "Oh, you peaked." Well, tell that to David Duval, right? I mean, David Duval, Annika Stormston, she's not looking. She peaked on every shot into the Hall of Fame. You picked your head up or, use the big muscles. And, of course, I'm not an instructor. I might play one on TV, but I've certainly taken enough lessons and tried all the methodologies, and I'm telling you, I think it hurts amateurs more than it helps them.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And just to add to that a little bit, Chris, one of the things that always sort of baffles the mind, obviously I use social media for promoting the shows and things like that. And I don't really engage a lot in the different golf groups. Of course, I promote in the golf groups on things like Facebook and other social media platforms just to sort of get the message out there. But every once in a while, I'll see a post that'll go up, and I'll see about 30 or 40 responses. And in some cases, or most cases, it's usually pretty civil. But every once in a while, somebody will throw up just what you're talking about, and suddenly there'll be about 100 responses, and it'll create literally a firestorm. And the sad part about it, Chris, is that many of the people that are responding are fellow instructors who are criticizing and critiquing one another over a simple post, and it actually does the industry a disservice. And I choose personally not to engage. I don't even respond to any of them, just because it doesn't matter whether you're right, wrong, or somewhere in between. Somebody isn't going to like what you have to say, and the next thing you know, you're I hate to use this term, but ground zero for the biggest bash of bull Durham you could ever imagine. So I stay clear of it. But that's a great point that you make out. And you're exactly right in your analogy too, Chris. I've seen a lot of the. I certainly don't know them all, but I've seen a lot of the other methodologies. And you named a few. Stack and tilt as one as an example. That might be a great theory for a lot of golfers. There might be some that can use that approach, but there are also maybe just as many golfers that will not work at all with. And that applies to all of the different methodologies, because we are uniquely different. Everybody's built and designed differently. So you have to kind of find what works for you. And some of them, as you said, contradict one another. And it just doesn't help when everybody's, we're not always going to agree on everything, but I think there's a better way of presenting it. Let's talk a little bit about, first off, why you decided to write the book and generally what it's about.
Well, Ted, I decided to write the book because I had people telling me, you've got a moral obligation to tell this story, because if you can help one person that loves this game of golf and save them what you went through, and some say I did lose my mind, it might help golfers, in one way or another. And I want to say one more thing about what you just said. A fellow Canadian in Calgary, Ron Sisson, is a gentleman that I spoke to at length and was working with him a little bit. I'd like to do more with him, but gosh, I just don't have the bandwidth at times with all the sites I'm working on. But Ron Sisson wrote a 15-chapter dissertation, if you will, called "Golf is Dying," and the premise of his incredible piece is the average handicap with all the technology and the titanium and the golf balls and the golf channel. The USGA will bear this out, has not improved in decades. Okay?
Right.
And why is that? And there are people leaving the game. Why is that? Well, it could be, the economy the past 8 years. It could be the cost. But I agree with Ron Sisson, and I believe his methodology is called the real swing. And I'm not sure what he's doing right now, but he's a brilliant man in Calgary. He's a golf coach, as he calls himself. But I believe, and I agree with him, and I agree with others, that it's because of instruction. And it starts at the PGA, and it starts at the USGA. So as I went through all these methodologies, it became my passion. It became my mission to find out all these different methodologies, which ones works, which ones don't. And I ended up moving back home to upstate New York, and I left the medical and the aesthetic sales industry, and I got in the PGA program at the great Sagamore Golf Course, 1928, Donald Ross design, Lake George, New York, Queen of American Lakes, incredible golf course. Dave Cummings, we call him PhD because everything is pin high Dave. He's the head pro there. I apprenticed under him, and for 2 years, Ted, I was in the PGA program, and it got to be where I just didn't want to learn how to fold shirts the right way and re-grip clubs. And I just, I love marketing. I love sales. And I said, I just can't do this. So Dave, he would have me give lessons to some of the hotel guests from the Sagamore Resort, Sagamore.com, by the way. And I was at that time taking stack and tilt lessons from Marty Nowicki, founder of the Impact Snap, and who just, I believe, was in Florida with Bobby Clampett, Impact Zone. Marty Nowicki is an unbelievable instructor. Turning Stone Resort in Syracuse. I would drive there for a year and a half and became his pupil, if you will, in stack and tilt. So I would have members come up to me, and I would teach stack and tilt for that 2-year period in the program, and they'd ask me about Don Trahan, Peak Performance, or David Ledbetter, or whatever the methodology may be. I mean, I've tried so many of them, I lose track. I have to, keep a journal or just look at the books on my bookshelf. So I had some of the members kind of inspire me to write this book, and it's not so much to say this is good, this is bad, or whatever. It's basically, hey, pick a swing and stick with it.
Right. Yeah, and you raise a very interesting point, Chris, because I agree. I mean, I'm in the profession. I see all of the, when you go to the PGA, and I didn't make it this year, unfortunately, but, when you go to the PGA show and you see all the latest and greatest tools and training that's available out there, and there's certainly some validity to the majority of it, but it just seems that, one moment, and I'm not going to get into names or anything like that. One moment, they're pushing, so-and-so is pushing this sort of methodology, and then a couple years down the road, they've now sort of regurgitated and reinvented a new format. And to me, it just falls into that more marketing. And I equate it to the golf manufacturers. And let me just quickly point this out, and then I'll let you continue. One of my biggest pet peeves is with the equipment manufacturers. Love the new technology. I think it looks great. It's exciting. It's interesting to see it every year. But the truth of the matter is, I don't care what club you put in a person's hand, what technology there is. Certainly there are going to be some improvements. But if the person does not know how to swing the club properly, I don't care what club you put in their hand, they're not going to get 10, 20, 30 extra yards and certainly straight if they don't know how to use the tool properly. And it bothers me when I go to the shows and they're coming out with this marketing, and I understand why they're doing it, because in my opinion, it borders on false advertisement. Now, if you were to put that club in Tiger Woods' hand or Dave Duval or some of the other tour players, then I could see the validity. But when you're putting it into a 25 or even a 30 handicap player and then expecting them to get that without really showing them how to use the tool properly, it's just not going to happen. And the same thing has happened with these different methodologies is, everybody, again, as we've stated, is uniquely different. And if you're trying to pigeonhole everybody into your methodology because you think this is the way that they're going to execute the perfect golf swing, then you're feeding them, I hate to say this, but a line of BS. And that's pretty much what you're trying to get across through the book, right?
Absolutely, Ted. And if I can go back just briefly to my prior medical device career, which was my primary source of income, but my secondary passion, I called on doctors and surgeons, ophthalmic surgeons for 2 companies, and then gastroenterologists, and then plastic surgeons and dermatologists. Well, there's a correlation between, I hate to say this, but there's a very, very similar mindset between doctors and golf instructors. So what does a doctor do? He diagnoses and he prescribes. And what does a golf instructor do? He diagnoses and he prescribes. And in my first trainer in medical device sales, while we're training in Raleigh, North Carolina, he said, "Hey, how many doctors does it take to change a light bulb?" And I hope I don't make your last 3 guests mad by this, but or I don't mean to insult anybody, but how many doctors does it take to change a light bulb? He asked me, and I said, "I don't know, Gordon. How many?" 1. He stands there and holds it and waits for the world to revolve around him. And golf pros, instructors, they're on a pedestal, and, they should be in many cases, very, very similar. But another point I wanted to make about, the golf clubs itself, and back to the myths and misconceptions that Tony Luzak at Reactionary Golf, who's actually in a PhD program validating his methodology, where it's not the big muscles, use your big muscles. Let me ask any of your guests, next time you go to a doctor and you have to have surgery and he's holding that instrument, right? I don't care if it's titanium or whatever it is. Do you want him to use his big muscles on you when he's doing surgery? No, he's going to use a surgical instrument, a pen, a fork. My opinion, based on all these methodologies, the instrument is the most important thing, and it's not the big muscles, and it's not the titanium, and it's not the trying to buy a game through technology. You have to learn to use the instrument, in my opinion.
Yeah. Eddie Mehrens, who is affectionately known as the Little Pro, and most people that have been in the golf industry for years know who he is. He's based out of California.
Swing the handle. Yeah.
Exactly. And he talks about that to a T. In fact, he was a guest on my show last year. I'm going to have him back again this year. But he equates it to tennis, very, very similar in some of the movements. But he talks about that as well, about the equipment and being able to use it and swing it properly. I've seen some folks, Lee Trevino comes to mind, who have had some of the most unorthodox swings you could ever imagine, and yet won multiple majors and many, many other tournaments in his career. Jim Furyk, there's dozens of them that you can name that didn't have the picture-perfect swing, but they knew how to put the club face on the ball, they knew how to hit through impact, and knew how to play the game. See, a lot of and I'm with you. I love the guests that I have on the show that are instructors because they get it. They're much like what we're talking about here is they don't stand on a pedestal. They know what they have to offer, and they're not trying to sell smoke and mirrors. They do a great job, and that's why I have them on the show. But I know exactly what you're talking about. But I think that as an industry, what we have to be able to do is we also have to be honest with ourselves and sort of take each individual player that we're working with or student that we're working with, and we have to take a look at the whole picture and make sure that they understand what the role they will play and what the role of the golf club will play and how they marry the two together. And when they understand that, I think they have a much better understanding, because ultimately you're not hitting the golf ball with your hand or your big muscles, you're hitting it with the club face. So you need to understand how that tool works. And you're exactly right. The same thing with a surgeon and a scalpel and other professionals that have tools. They have to learn how to use that tool properly. And whether you put a $400 driver or a $40 driver or a rusty driver that you pulled out of the pond, if you don't know how to swing it properly and use that tool properly, you're not going to get the results. Something else, too, that I want to touch on and give you an opportunity to share your thoughts, and that is sort of the business of golf, everything from manufacturers and retail. Everything seems to be going online, and a lot of the pro shops, as I'm sure you'll attest to, are suffering. They're going against the big box stores, and even the teaching professionals have had to step up their game a little bit and get into some online instruction because there's so much free content on there. Give your thoughts there on what's happening in the industry, and as an instructor, how can they sort of get in it but do it successfully?
Well, again, Ted, great question. I go back to my career in the medical device sales, calling on doctors, and the similarities between doctors and golf pros. They diagnose and they prescribe. Mm-hmm. So finally, when I moved back home, I said, I had a product in CVS and Rite Aid, an incredible scar product I had discovered, if you will, in my skincare foray in Mobile, and got a doctor, a plastic surgeon in upstate New York to kind of do a study on it, and we sold it to, some of your listeners may have seen the commercials on TV for Blue Emu, and they have Mike Ditka and
yes.
Johnny Bench endorsing it. Well, they used to have Jay Haas. Well, that's the company, NFI Consumer Products. We sold this product to for scars, but it works on pain. And I had developed a product with my brother called Golf Therapy. We almost got it into Edwin Watts. So I'm looking at all these different, these industries and how the medical device industry and what happened with insurance plans, and I'm looking at golf. And in 2005, with this all-natural oil, transdermal, anti-inflammatory emu oil, I said, Dr. Chow, who was my partner, I think everything's going online, including golf.
Yeah.
And
yes.
So this was before the Amazon addicted society we've become. My goodness, my brother lives next door to me here on Glen Lake in upstate New York, and I see an Amazon box almost every day showing up at his doorstep. But in 2005, we weren't there yet, right? It was like, and I remember Tony Luzak and I talking about this at reactionarygolf.com. My second grade instructor, Tony Luzak, who I worked with for some time, and now who's just doing fabulous with his research. Everything's going to go online, and it did. And you're seeing it from Dick's Sporting Goods. A good friend of mine worked for Dick's Sporting Goods for years. Dick's Sporting Goods used to have here in the U.S., 500 stores. Every store had a Class A PGA Pro, and oops, no more. Now they have part-timers, and hopefully they know enough about golf. Why? Because everybody's going into Dick's Sporting Goods, and they're using it as a demo site. They're saying, hey, let me hit this new M4. Let me hit this new Rogue driver by Callaway. Let me hit this new Ping. Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks for letting me use the launch monitor in the bay there. And they go online to Second Swing or whatever, and they buy it online. That's been happening for years. Well, the same thing's happening with golf instruction. So if you can pay, God bless him, Justin Tupper of Revolution Golf, if you can pay $125 to be a member and watch streaming videos from Sean Foley and Martin Chuck and whomever and whomever and whomever, do you really need to go to a range and pay, take the time and go there? So everything's going online. So about the time my Scar product died on the store shelves because they didn't believe us that we need to go direct to the consumer, good buddy of mine from South Alabama, Mark Meyer, the founder of Digital Response Marketing Group, drmglistens.com, said, Chris, you're a sales guy, you love golf. You're a marketing guy, you love golf. Work with me, I'll teach you how to do all this stuff online. And I helped some medical device companies. I helped some doctors. And about 2 years ago, after 10 years of learning the digital marketing space, I said, why don't I apply this to golf? And the very first company I found, one of the most historic ever in the putting manufacturing, Odie Chrisman, out of Selma, Alabama. My late uncle gave me one of their putters when I was in Mobile, and a great guy, Ned Martin, who's got a great product, the Perfect Swing Path board. He's out of Decatur. He said, hey, Chris, and he went to college with my buddy. You ought to call up Odie Chrisman, Odie the third, the son of the late Odie Chrisman, who developed the first putter in 1946 that they all used. Jackie Burke, you name it, Miller, Arnold Palmer, with a brass insert. He might need your help. So OdieGolf.com is the first company. Thanks to my buddy Mark Meyer at Digital Response Marketing Group, I said, hey, let's go online. Let's get a website, and we did. And same thing with Brett Freeman, same with FreebirdGolf.com, same thing with Tony Luzak, ReactionaryGolf.com, and my new site with my partner John Bentz, a.k.a. JB Free, GolfDiscover.com. Right. Everything, Ted, is going online. And the one thing I found, and this is, again, back to the comparison and or the similarity between the doctors I called on for years, my primary career, and the golf companies or the golf pros, they know they need to be there. They know that's the yellow pages are dead, Golf Digest and all the magazines. The big companies, the big boys, they're advertising online now. And golf instruction is going online now. So they know golf, they know putters, but they don't know the pieces, all the moving parts online in this day and age. So that kind of became my new mission, is to help, whether it's a manufacturer, AccuStrike, great product, Odie Golf, OdieGolf.com, the Odie Chrisman putters that we're trying to, resurrect, this classic, historic, handmade putter, or whether it's instructors. Rather than working with doctors and hospitals, I want to help the golf industry grow the game online as best I can.
Yeah, and you raise a very great point, Chris, because, this is something that's been happening for several years right now, that there has been a shift. And, they keep, we see it on the Golf Channel all the time. They're, for a long time, they were trying to figure out, how do we grow the game? What do we do to grow the game? And there was a lot of dialogue going on, and some of it was certainly some good information, but there was a lot of it they just weren't getting. And they're almost in a bit of a denial, I think, as a general rule, when I listen to a lot of the chatter, not only in social media, but even areas like the Golf Channel and others, is they don't recognize that. And even Nicholas said this recently on a fairly current episode of Faraday, that there's things that need to change in the golf industry if they want to truly grow the game. One of it is, as you said, which is a major one, is getting into the digital market, because there is so much content now available that it is getting harder and harder for the average golf instructor to be able to, open up their shop, and people are not coming to the golf courses like they were to take golf lessons. So, and that's not to say that there aren't, people doing that, but people can get the same information, as you said, going to revolutionarygolf.com or some of the other major players, and get that instruction either through a membership program or even free. Now, some of it may or may not be good, depending on where they're going, but it's still much more accessible. And I think that one of the things that the industry has failed to do is to recognize the market that's out there. And, when as I said earlier on in our discussion, I took up golf much earlier than you did. My father played golf. He got me into the game. So I'm a little bit different breed. But a lot of the younger generation that are very tech savvy right now with computers and smartphones and all of this other good stuff weren't brought up in the same environment. So we have to find a way to reach out to them, to engage and get them interested in golf and get them out playing the game. But they're not going to do that by just going to the golf course in the morning and opening the doors and hoping that, the 20-somethings or the millennials are going to come waltzing through the door. It's not going to happen because they're on social media or some other digital platform. So we have to be creative. And this is where you're stepping in with a lot of these organizations and helping them to do just that, correct?
I'm trying, Ted. I'm trying. I'm a one-man show, but between Golf Discovered, where we're trying to promote, hey, look, pick a swing and stick with it, find your game, and not just the golf swing. The upstate New York area,
right.
The Sagamore Golf Course, Donald Ross Design, Ticonderoga Country Club, Lake Placid, all the way through Maine. It's an untapped area for golfers, and we're just trying to help them find their game, whether it's the golf swing or destinations or discounts. But absolutely, it's not gone unnoticed. And back to Justin Tupper, one of my heroes, who founded Revolution Golf back when there wasn't streaming YouTube videos or membership models like Mike Malaska or Tony Luzak, Reactionary Golf, one of the best, or soon to be Brett Freeman's Freebird Golf, based on Manuel de la Torre's unbelievable methodology where you're focused on the club externally instead of body parts. There's simply no question that has gone unnoticed, but not to the Golf Channel, because after Justin Tupper discovered streaming videos versus mailing DVDs, and Justin Tupper got 150,000 subscribers or members, etc., the Golf Channel very smartly bought him recently, as you are probably aware. And they bought him for a reason.
Right.
They bought him for the eyeballs. They bought him for the people that subscribe and or visit and or are paid members. Doesn't matter to the advertisers. They want eyeballs, and they know that that's where the golfers are going. They're going online much, much, much more, whether it's buying equipment, whether it's golf instruction, or whether it's trying to find their game before they lose their mind.
Yeah, and that's you're exactly right. That's what's been happening. It's been leading up to that, and I think that one of the problems that I've seen in the area. I mean, I'm in obviously the Panhandle area in Panama City Beach, Florida, and I know just even reaching out within this corridor, this sort of Emerald Coast corridor, that there's still a lot of old way thinking in how they approach golf. And I touched on that just a moment ago, it's open my doors and they will come. That's not the case. Now, obviously, most of the courses in this area, of course, have some digital presence. Maybe it's a website and things like that. But it's just basically informational. They're not really doing anything to reach out to their communities to attract people there. They're, offering discounted rounds and things like that, which is great, but it's not any sort of an outreach program to get people to come to the golf courses and to play. So this is why many of them are struggling, and it's that old sort of way of thinking. The industry has to change and has to evolve, and if you don't do that, this is why every month more and more golf courses are closing their doors, because they're refusing to change their business model, and they've stayed in sort of this what used to be a tried and true method for decades, and don't see the horizon. And obviously, as you just pointed out, the Golf Channel recognized this digital streaming market is going to be a huge development in the industry, and they were getting in sort of on the ground floor by making the purchase that they did. So you're exactly right. Now, the book, I want to just go back to the book real quick because we're getting close to our time. The book is available now, correct?
What we're doing, Ted, is at golfdiscovered.com is we're basically, if you subscribe for free and enter your email address, permission-based marketing, big component of this whole digital age we're in, what we'll do is we'll send you series of the book over a period of time, and in between, more and more things we discover to help golfers find their game, whether it's discounts online, whether it's destinations. I'll bet you, and I think when you and I talked, that most golfers have never heard of the Sagamore Donald Ross design 1928 with a hotel from the 1800s on an island right down the hill from them. So our objective with golfdiscover.com is to help golfers find things that make them enjoy the game more. Same thing with Freebird Golf, the late, great Manuel de la Torre. You know, people just don't enjoy the game enough. They don't. I mean, I was nicknamed MDD for years, Manic Depressive Doster. If I hit a bad shot, boom, I'm done. You know, and it's a shame that people just don't. And it's probably because I had 19 different methodologies running through my head. But yes, the book will be sent out in a series of emails. We use a top of the line, state of the art email marketing service, and we send, you know, a welcome letter with the first portion and the first section of the book, if you will. So we don't want to just sell it to somebody and make money off an ebook. We want to help golfers find their game. Legitimately, we do. Same thing with Freebird Golf with the club, a user's manual. You know, we're going to offer that book for free for people that subscribe for the membership that we're going to have here soon. Right now it's for free just for your email, just to try to help golfers, you know, just try to help grow the game. You know, I mean, I remember when Jack Nicklaus and the late, great King Arnold Palmer, they had a couple of campaigns, you may recall, Ted, While We're Young, and what was the other one? Play It Forward. You know, we got to do some things that are, like you said, untraditional to advance and grow the game. A lot of it's digital. A lot of it's online. Some of it's not. Some of it falls on the shoulders of the golf course superintendent. Why are we putting the tees that far back? Why are we making the pin placement so tough? Let's try to make the game fun again, you know. And instruction is another component. So at golfdiscover.com, you know, we're going to offer not only the book, Find Your Game Before You Lose Your Mind, hoping it helps some people not go through what I went through, or at least, hey, you're interested in stack and tilt, here's the link. Here's a review. You're interested in Impact Zone, here's the link. You're interested in Freebird Golf or Reactionary Golf by Tony Luzak, here you go. Pick a swing. And like one of your guests here prior to me coming on said, my goodness, take some lessons. And if you take it at a golf course, face-to-face, or if you take it online or you're subscribed to a membership, pick a swing methodology, stick with it. Everybody's different. Everybody's got a different anatomy. But you know what? The one thing, and this is why I love what Tony Luzak and his research at Mississippi State, he left his position as director of golf to go back to school and validate what he believes. And what he believes, as Manuel de la Torre and Ernest Jones is it's the golf club that leads and the body follows. The late Thomas Tomasello, one of the original golfing machine instructors. I challenge everybody listening to go to YouTube and type in Tom Tomasello, Lee Dietrich, and see the last 3 videos this man did before he died. And he said what's hurting golf is that everybody's first move is turn. And there's no golf club. As Manuel de la Torre used to say, and Brett Freeman at Freebird Golf will attest because he worked with him for over 20 years, he would ask people, what are you thinking about? And they'd say, well, I want to get my weight shift. And after they went through this list, he would say, okay. And he'd reach out and he'd say, can I have your golf club? Whatever they had. And they'd look at him puzzled. Well, what do you mean? Well, you never mentioned the golf club, the instrument, the tool. So I think, again, I'm not a golf instructor, play one on TV. The golf club is what matters. I don't care what it's made of. It's M1, M2, M3, M4, or whatever it may be. But, you know, we have to kind of, to grow the game, start, you know, maybe, you know, coming together as an industry and saying, look, we just can't keep fighting amongst these different methodologies, and we got to somehow make the game fun again.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Chris. And, you know, this is what I try to do with this program. I mean, we talk about a lot of different things on the show. But, I always try to be very open-minded with my guests and obviously try to find, because I certainly don't know everything, and neither do any of my other guests, but collectively we try to work together. And, I've been approached before in the past, and I'm going to say this very quickly, and then we've got to wrap up. I've been approached before on the show about well, let's do such and such, and let's, be real controversy in order to boost listenership. And, I don't want to bring people on here to attack them or to do things like that. I want to conduct a show that people are going to want to gravitate to, want to come on here to truly grow the game. And, so I don't want to bring on a coach, let's say, and say, well, your method is wrong or this, and sort of sandbag them on the show, because that's not the purpose of Golf Talk Live. And this is why I get the people reaching out that do year after year, want to coming back on, whether it be the Coach's Corner panel or being a guest. And you're right, we have to come together as an industry. We have to share and exchange ideas, and we have to be willing to make changes. Every other industry has to do the same thing in their own unique perspectives. So the golf industry is no different. But if you're not willing to be receptive and listen to other options or other situations that may be made available, then you become very closed-minded, and you end up being on the unemployment line, whether as an instructor or as a golf course superintendent or whatever the case may be. So I agree wholeheartedly with you, Chris. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, but we're out of time. I enjoyed our conversation. It was very interesting to hear your perspective on the industry and what you're doing to try and help change and grow and develop the industry. But for those that are tuning into the broadcast, if they want to maybe reach out to you, whether they're in the industry or not, and learn more about some of the things that you've been talking about here tonight, and maybe take the steps to get their hot little hands on the information that you've been talking about here through your book, what's the best way to reach out?
Either any of my sites, chrisdoster@gmail.com is my Gmail address. My email address, golfdiscover.com. That's the site that we're launching now. Contact me at that site, or FreebirdGolf.com, that I'm working with Brett Freeman and his great work with Manuel De La Torre. So I'm easy to find. chrisdoster.com as well, my blog I've had for a few years. And hey, all I want to do is help the industry and help golfers, the 25+ million of us. I'm an amateur,
right,
just like most of them, and help them find their game before they lose their mind.
Exactly. Well said. Well, Chris, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for being my guest tonight on Golf Talk Live. I've enjoyed the conversation, and I want to wish you all the continued success in your journey, and I hope you'll come back and join me again in the future.
Same to you, Ted. Love your show. Thank you for the time.
Not a problem. All right, Chris, have a great weekend. Enjoy the Bay Hill Invitational this weekend.
I will, and happy birthday, Ted.
Thank you, sir. All right, you have a good evening.
Bye.
All right, that was my very special guest, Chris Doster. Very interesting backstory to some of the things that he's done and he's accomplished, and obviously very passionate about helping not just those in the industry, but those outside the industry as well, to really get out and enjoy and as he said, have fun with this game. I also want to give a special thanks again to the guys on the panel tonight, Pete Buchanan, John Decker, and Brian Dobby. Guys, you did a great job as always. I enjoy it having you on the show, and you always bring your best. And I want to thank you guys for doing such a great job. And I want to thank all of you, the listeners, of course, worldwide, for faithfully tuning into Golf Talk Live. And it's really through your efforts of tuning into the show, and, of course, my special guests for doing such a great job and bring some interesting dialogue and topics to the show that have helped make Golf Talk Live a first-class show. I will see you guys next Tuesday on blogtalkradio.com's Women of Golf show with my good friend, LPGA professional Cindy Miller, next Tuesday, March the 20th. from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern. Make sure you tune in for that. We're going to have a great panel discussion next week, and then I'll be back here next Thursday with another great round of Coach's Corner and another interesting guest I'm sure you won't want to miss. So make sure you tune in next Thursday from 6 to 8 Central right here on Golf Talk Live. Enjoy the tournament this weekend, guys. God bless, and I'll see you next week.